it's another great day for another great episode of Point of View. I'm Pastor Josh Barnes, and this is the show where we're unashamed to look at political, cultural, social, and theological issues from a biblical worldview. That's right, we're not going to run and hide when people say that you're wrong or that we're lying or, all the different accusations that people throw out, because we hear all of those things. We're not interested in backing down from the biblical worldview. The reason for that is because Jesus died on the cross for our sins. He rose from the dead to prove that he was everything that he said he was. And he told us that the Bible is true. So that means that if we arrive at conclusions, however intelligent they may sound, if they disagree with the Bible, they're wrong. Because Jesus said the Bible's true, and he died on the cross and rose from the dead. So we're going to look at things as if the Bible's actually true. Now, if you're a Christian, it shouldn't be a crazy thing for me to suggest that you should agree with this, right? If you're a Christian, you believe that Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead, or you're not a Christian. Okay, you're not. That's definitional for Christianity. And if you believe that Jesus rose from the dead, then the things that Jesus said must be true, right? That he rose from the dead to prove it. And so the Bible must be true. It should not be like pulling teeth to convince Christians to be biblical in their theology and in their politics and in all of these things. But it seems like it is. And we have another example of this today from a video by that I received through Woke Preacher Clips. I like to do one of these every month or so, and actually reached out to the person. I don't even know if it's male or female. The person who runs Woke Preacher Clips, he or she. I'm assuming. I'm just going to say he, just for sake of I don't know. He asked to remain anonymous. Did not give me his name. So don't know who it is, and I respect that. Wanted to get him on Point of View, but he was not available for that at the present time. Hopefully at some point in the future things will change, and he'll be willing to do that, he or she. And but anyway, so great work that they're doing over there. You can go onto YouTube and search for Woke Preacher Clips, and you'll find the channel. It's amazing. It is well. It's amazing, but it's also depressing. It's frustrating to see how bad it is in America, not just on the left, on the political left, but in Christian churches, or so-called Christian churches. It's sad and depressing. This video is a video of Christian leaders from Christian churches talking about how there needs to be some sort of reparations for racial injustice because of Monopoly. I kid you not. They're using the game Monopoly as their proof that we as Christians need to engage in reparations, I suppose is the way to say it. I just watched this briefly. This is sort of you're going to see my almost initial reaction. I watched through this one time right before the show, and now we're doing the show. So this is going to be kind of off the cuff, which can be fun sometimes and also can be trash. So we're going to see how this. You tell me which one you think this episode turns out to be, whether it's trash or not. Let me roll the video, and we'll pause it as needed to talk about some of the huge errors that might be coming up. And don't forget, if you agree, disagree, whatever, that's fine. You're welcome to come on this channel, be a part of it, disagree with everything. I'm not going to delete your comments. Put them up there. Let me know if you disagree. But please, I would ask you, I'm begging you, please try to use some critical thinking skills in your responses. Try to demonstrate your claims instead of just saying, you're an idiot, you're a liar, which I get a lot of, by the way, mostly on my Bart Ehrman videos. But anyway, here we go. Here is, we'll just roll it. This is from Woke Preacher Clips.
When we say the white system is a racist system, we're not saying all white people are bad and all white people hate black people. That's not what we're saying.
Okay, I'm going to pause it right there so you can see the names here. This is on the far right, you've got Sho Baraka, who's a recording artist, a Christian recording artist. You got Lee Jenkins, who is the pastor, I believe, of Eagle's Nest Church. The names of churches these days, it astounds me. Let me move myself here so you can see. The other is Darren Youngstrom from New Vintage Church. And look at how I'm just kind of floating around there. If you're listening on the radio, you have no idea what I'm talking about. And then this is from June of last year. This is when it was found. 2020, the worship stream, This Is Our America. So there you go. You're caught up with who these players are. These are not going to be the only ones in this video. It's really a montage of people using this claim that monopoly is the reason why Christians ought to be for reparations.
We're saying there's literally a way of life that has been created because of our history, because of the history of racism, that naturally leads to life being easier for white people than black people. And it's still with us. Like you said, the cough is still happening. Yeah.
Amen. I liken it to playing Monopoly.
Let's say a bunch of us are playing Monopoly.
Imagine you're playing a game of Monopoly.
You guys can play for 2 days, and you guys have dominated the whole board, and then all of a sudden I come in on day 3, and I'm like, hey, I want to play Monopoly.
If you've played Monopoly, have you ever passed go and didn't collect your $200? Didn't you get frustrated? You're like, gosh, I forgot to get my $200.
For the first 5 rounds, you are in a group of people that are not allowed to collect $200 when you pass go, and you are not allowed to buy property. And the other group is allowed to get $200 and to buy property.
Imagine.
Okay, can I just say, before we get into this and they start explaining their arguments, can I just say off the bat, my initial thoughts are already, what? You do realize that there's a lot of poor white people in America. I'm one of them. I was not handed anything growing up. I mean, my parents, they wanted me to go to school, so they told me to get a job so I could go to college. I had to pick myself up on my own bootstraps, not because my parents didn't care, because they couldn't pay for everything. This is nonsense, right? Just because there are a significant number of people with a certain skin color that fall into a certain category of wealth in our country doesn't mean that it stems from racism. And that's the assumption. Because of the racism, black people are poor. Yeah, but there's a lot of white people who are poor. And there wasn't any racism involved in that. Do they need reparations? I mean, what are you going to do to all the... What are you going to say to all the white people who are dirt poor? You're going to tell them to give money to the black people? I mean, and whatever happened to judging people on the content of their character rather than the color of their skin? Why is it that an entire skin color of people, let me change out of this, we'll go back to it in a second. Why is it that an entire skin color of people is grouped together in this, and this is not racist? How is it not racist to even talk about black people as if they're a people? They're just human beings with different skin color. And yes, some of them, not all of them, some of them, even many of them in this country, are descended from former slaves. That's true. But once they were no longer slaves, their descendants were just like me. They were raised poor, just like me. They had to pick themselves up by their own bootstraps, just like me. Listen, I'm still poor. I mean, why is it that the parents and the grandparents and the great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, the things that were done wrong to them needs to be visited on the children so much later? See, this already smacks to me of racist itself. It's saying that all black people are at a disadvantage because they're black and because of this thing that happened more than 100 years ago. And that seems racist to me. If a regular person who can be born into a poor family can go find a job, can pick themselves up by their bootstraps, buy property, do what they need to do, and build, what companies and vast empires and of business and all this stuff, anyone can do it. It's not just white people who could do it. It's not just Asian people. It's not just Hispanic people. Anyone can do it. Why is it that we need to give reparations to one group? What about all the other groups? That doesn't make any sense. I don't see any problem with saying to someone who was a slave, to saying that person who was a slave deserves reparations from the people who owned them as slaves. Makes sense, right? That makes a lot of sense, right? You did an injustice to that person you owe money to. But why are the great grandchildren of the people who owned slaves now owe money to the great grandchildren of the people who were slaves? Does that make any sense? It doesn't. I'll answer that. It doesn't. So that's my initial thoughts. Okay, let's listen to their argument. We're gonna go through it slowly, and you tell me what you guys think. But this just doesn't sound right to me. Already, it doesn't sound Christian, because Christianity isn't about what can I get. It's about I'm content with such things as I have. And Christians are the most persecuted group on the planet. And if anyone deserves reparations, it is Christians, not black, white, Asian, Hispanic, whatever, just Christian people. We have been persecuted for thousands of years, for a millennia. And you're going to say that because there was slavery for a few hundred years, that they need reparations. What about reparations for Christians? Is that what Christians should be seeking? Absolutely not. Because that's not a Christian mentality. You need to give me something. No, Christians trust in God and aren't really worried about the money of this world because, guess what? This world is not my home. I'm just passing through. So I think we're already off to a bad foot. Let's hear out their Monopoly illustration and see what they have to say.
We played 400 rounds of Monopoly. 400 rounds. And every time I got money, I had to give it to my counterpart. And every time I got a house, I had to give it to my counterpart. For 400 rounds, I'm making money, but I'm giving it to them. I'm making money, but I'm giving it to them. I'm making money, but I'm giving it to them. And then every time I get a house, I give it to you. Every time I get a house, I give it to you. But then all of a sudden, the rules change, and the folks who are running the board say, you know what? You can start getting some houses. You can get some houses, you can get some money.
And at some point, you
Hold up. Life is not Monopoly. Can I just say this? Life is not Monopoly. Did you know that? Did you know that life isn't Monopoly? Like, you don't just get $200 just for being alive, right? That's not how life is. You don't just get $200 for passing go, for staying in the game. That's not how life works. There's also not a limited number of businesses that can be started. There's not a limited number of properties that can be owned. And by the way, in our life, we're not trying to win. Our goal in Monopoly is to own the board and put everyone else, make everyone else bankrupt, put everyone else out of the game, to control everything, to have the ultimate amount of wealth. This is not what life is all about. Life is not about... This is not the Christian life. The Christian life is not about trying to get wealth. The Christian life is not monopoly. It's not about trying to put other people's into bankruptcy. It's not about trying to become extremely wealthy. And there's not a limited number of things you can do to get wealth that are all controlled by people who've been playing for 400 rounds. By the way, I've never heard of a game of Monopoly going 400 rounds before it's over. I mean, this is just complete nonsense. Absolutely ridiculous nonsense. But now it's being equated to real life, and boom, wow, it's powerful and it's big and it's Christian. But it's not Christian, it's not big, and it's not powerful because it's completely false and based on false assumptions. We need some truth here, right? Some critical thinking skills. And we're not getting these from Christian leaders, and that's sad to me.
You say, hey, this isn't working for me. And the response of the person who's running the game says, okay, now everybody can collect $200 and everybody can buy property.
And you're like, look, you can play, but we're not giving up any of our property. We worked hard for all of this. So we'll include you now.
That's good.
Matter of fact, you know what? We'll give you Baltic and Mediterranean. And don't complain. Don't complain. We gave you an opportunity, right?
Yep.
The other team has hotels on all the properties and they own all the land and all the utilities and everything. Is that a fair system? Do you need to do something to correct the damage that was already done by you not having an equal playing field from the beginning?
I get some money, but my counterparts, whenever they feel like it, they can take some of the money that I have. They can actually flick off and burn down whole communities if they want to and flick off houses there. In fact, this is funny, some of my teammates start disappearing and the people on the other side just start shrugging their shoulders. And now I'm playing the game, but I'm grieving because I...
Hold on. By the way, Monopoly isn't a team game. I wonder if this guy's ever played Monopoly. All right, Monopoly's not a team sport. You're against everyone else. You want to make everyone else bankrupt. If the other people on the board are disappearing, you're winning Monopoly. And I don't even understand this. Your teammates are disappearing. Are people abducting Black people? Is that this is not a thing, right? Okay, yes, some people with dark skin. I don't even like saying Black people because that's a racist term to me. I mean, I know that a person of that ethnicity would have no problem with it. I don't like it. It's characterizing somebody by their skin, which is nonsense. But yeah, so some people with that ethnicity, with darker skin, human beings with darker skin than I, have been killed, have died, and a few might have been unjust. There's at least a few that were definitely unjust. But your teammates are disappearing. This doesn't make any sense. It doesn't fit at all with the illustration he's trying to make here. Yeah, let me back up because there's something else he said here that I wanted to respond to, and I can't even remember what he said.
My counterparts, whenever they feel like it, they can take some of the money that I have. They can actually flick off and burn down whole communities if they want to and flick off houses there.
Who does that? Hold on a second. Are you suggesting that people with light skin are stealing money from people with black skin whenever they want? Who's doing this? Maybe the liberals, maybe the left in the government is doing this because, with taxes. But other than that, Republicans are for low taxes, right? I mean, this is nonsense. The black communities that he's talking about are controlled by liberals and leftists who have raised taxes like crazy, and he's not having any problem with them. And besides this, who's burning down cities and who's burning down towns? It is people protesting for Black Lives Matter. I mean, this is nonsense. This is complete nonsense.
In fact, this is funny. Some of my teammates start disappearing and the people on the other side just start shrugging their shoulders. And now I'm playing the game, but I'm grieving because I don't see my teammates anymore.
If you just look at it conceptually, you see the logic. You can't just say, now everybody plays by the same rules when the damage is already done. You're going to lose every dime you have as soon as you land on Park Place. You're never going to be able to catch up.
We do this for 400 rounds. Then we do that for 50 rounds. I don't have many houses. I don't have much money. And then after 450 rounds, my counterparts say, you know what? Can I ask you a question? Why aren't you winning? And that question, asked again and again, would echo back to all the rounds that you defrauded me. That question would echo back to all the houses I don't own. And I would look at those houses on Park Place and Boardwalk, and I would want to burn the whole game down. And I'd want to flip the whole game over because the game is rigged.
If I play
why aren't you winning? Monopoly is about putting everyone else out of business, being filthy rich. This is not Christian. Winning Monopoly is not an illustration for living the Christian life. It is the worst. And I love the point that Woke Preacher Clips is bringing out here. Probably a good time to note that this analogy was popularized by a viral video in defense of riots. This is exactly what he's saying. He's saying, hey, I would want to just burn the whole game down because I can't win because the game is rigged. Life is not a game. Life is not Monopoly, and you shouldn't want to burn other people down. That's nonsense. And as I've said before, life doesn't operate the way Monopoly does. Everyone has to start somewhere. Yes, some people are handed it, right? Some people they're rich and they're just given money. Most people are not. I am one of them, and I'm not black. I hope you can see that. I'm not. And many, many like me have, survived and made it and done the best they can with what they have. Whether they're black or white or whatever color. Doesn't really matter. We do the best we can with what we have. That's Christianity because we're trusting in God. This burning things down is not Christianity.
400 rounds of Monopoly with you, and I had to play and give you every dime that I made. And then for 50 years, every time that I played, if you didn't like what I did, you got to burn it like they did in Tulsa. How can you win? You can't win. The game is fixed. So when they say, why do you burn down the community? Why do you burn down your own neighborhood? It's not ours. We don't own anything. As far as I'm concerned, they could burn this to the ground, and it still wouldn't be enough.
You think just because, we freed slaves, that everybody has equal opportunity. Yeah. Slavery was an institution for which people benefited substantially. Companies were built off of this. And you said the word reparations, and I'm not saying everybody needs to get a check, but we need to figure out how to work this thing out. Because repentance, to your point, is turning away, and we see consistently in the scriptures that it's not just the turning away, but it's how do I repair the damage that has been done. We don't mind saying I'm my bad, but when it gets to the point where it's like, wait, hold up, I have to fix what I just did? Yeah. Well, and how do we begin to say, all right, we need to start divesting in some of the institutions that have built billion-dollar industries, our churches, our seminaries, right? We can go on on how not only the church was silent, but how they were complicit in building institutions. Slavery itself was an institution that was perpetuated by Christians in Europe. It's like, hey, we need to civilize these folks, and we're going to make money off it while we're civilized.
Christians ended slavery. It was poor Christianity, not biblical worldview Christianity, that some people may have used to justify slavery, but that's not really why Christians went to Africa and to other places like that in order to bring the gospel and, yes, to civilize them. That's not why they were taken as slaves. Taking as slaves wasn't taken to civilize them. That may have been an excuse that somebody used who was not a Christian, who is not a Christian in their worldview. But that is not Christian at all. Christianity did not start racism, and Christian institutions didn't benefit from slavery, as far as I know. They weren't built on the backs of slaves, and all of these institutions that may have been built on the backs of slaves, you can now be a part of. You can actually receive the money from that by being a part of America, where there's all this prosperity. You can receive the benefit of this. This is actually a really interesting point that because America is so prosperous, you can receive benefit from the companies that make, tons of money. I've received a lot of benefit by ordering things from Amazon super cheap. Even though I don't work for Amazon, haven't ever gotten a paycheck, I've benefited from the company Amazon. And Amazon paying their employees and their employees buying other things, and those things paying their employees and their employees buying other things, has contributed to the wealth of the country and has helped me out substantially. So I don't think Amazon was built on the backs of slaves, but even companies that are huge, that are built on the backs of slaves, actually help everyone in the country just by existing. Having large, successful companies in the country help everyone. You don't believe me? Go to any third world country and see why everyone's poor. It's because there's no giant companies to work for that can pay you tons of money. This is nonsense. This is nonsense. That's what this is.
Point about monopoly, it's a credit to the black culture, black community that you have done as well as you have, starting with Baltic. You've done far more and far better than anyone would anticipate because of strength, character, power, unity, decision to overcome and to work in the midst of difficulty.
And every time we pass go, we land on that little joint that makes it like gives you the $200 back. It's like, it's every time. It's just like,
you're not getting your $200.
Oh, man. That's
Yeah.
I love this. Exodus 20:17, Psalm 38:16, and 1 Timothy 6:8 could not be reached for comment. Let me read those passages for you. I'm telling you what, you guys need to go check out Woke Preacher Clubs if you haven't done it yet. Exodus 20, verse 17, that's the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. If it's not yours, quit wishing you had it. That's a command of God. I'm sorry, reparations, this idea that black people need to demand reparations is ungodly. It's not Christian. It's not Christian. Let's see. 1 Timothy 6, verse 8 says this, and having food and raiment, let us therewith be content. That's the Christian attitude. Paul said this in Philippians chapter 4. He said, Philippians chapter 4 and verse 12, I know how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ who strengtheneth me. This is the Christian mindset. This is the Christian worldview. Psalm 37, let's read that real quick before we have to go. Psalm 37 and verse 16 says this, a little that a righteous man hath is better than the riches of many wicked. And with that, I leave you. Please don't get sucked into the nonsense of the left and the nonsense of progressive Christianity. Stay true to Christ. Stay true to the gospel and to the Bible. Be biblical in your worldview. We'll see you next time on Point of View.